Loyalty. A word given to those who are dedicated to one thing or one person. For years, this man could have switched. He didn't. He stayed on one game, one character. Hours, days, weeks, months, years,
decades,
dedicated to one character. One character. Loves, and well, gives himself to. And we know what word that is. And you know who this man is. And well, he doesn't need an introduction. Sweden. Yeah, it doesn't look like much, but it's beautiful. Look at these gorgeous rocks, this big luscious field of green, and there's one thing about Sweden that is very underlooked. Freedom of expression is the foundation of the Swedish state. Yeah, we have that in America as well, but Swedish people don't just underlook this. They do one big thing.
they value it.
More than anything. Like I said, it's one of the foundations of what makes them them. Freedom of democracy, freedom of religion, freedom to be who you are, freedom without being judged constantly. Well, maybe not that, because judging people is a human instinct. But there's so much opportunity here. But Sweden is like America in some ways.
But a surge in gun crime here and nationwide has made Sweden one of the worst countries in Europe for gangland shootings.
Vi har ju haft 12 skjutningar i Linköping under 2021.
Last year in Linköping, we had 12 shootings and 5 killings. Previously, we had 1 shooting a year. The situation in Sweden is being driven by drugs and money in a totally different way to how it used to be.
Police say 15 gang conflicts are underway in Stockholm alone, mainly in the suburbs. A report from the National Crime Prevention Council has shown Sweden as the only country in Europe where gun deaths are rising, with 4 killings per million people against the continental average of 1.6. In 2021, there were 342 shootings and 46 deaths. In the southern city of Malmö, 6 months of police raids 2 years ago began a period of calm. But with drugs and guns flowing into Malmö over the bridge from Denmark, a solution to the violence seems a long way off.
With that being said, who is Adrian Lavanda? Now to show the real main man Swede.
Boobs. Best song pick ever from Marduk video. I just have to say that. Well, at least he didn't get it perfect. Well, at least he didn't get a win.
He is a Tekken player, but who is he? And where did his story begin? As kids, when we look around us, little things catch our attention, even if they're not that big of a deal. Adrian wasn't very different.
When I was 10 years old, my dad worked as a fashion designer. Oh, he loved that stuff. And when you're a fashion designer, you travel quite a lot. And so he did, and he had one particular travel a few months prior to November 1995, where he traveled to France. France being a large nation when it comes to fashion, you probably know this. But he brought with him back to me, because I loved video games at this time. You know, I just gotten my PlayStation 1, and oh, did I love that machine. Wipeout, that was the original. God, what a classic. But he had this French video gaming magazine, and on the cover there was Jack throwing Kazuya, his old standard throw, like taking out the trash. And then I just opened it. I went to the midsection of it, which was the coverage of Tekken 1, and just looking at the pictures, I don't know what it was, but I was immediately hooked. Like, I was completely captivated by this game that I saw was called Tekken. I guess I realized it was a beat 'em up because they were punching each other.
Adrian was so captivated by Tekken's cover that he called his local rental store daily, relentlessly, until it got his way.
And I was obsessed. And I would call, because at this time I was, video rental stores were everywhere, and me and my dad, we were obsessed with movies, you know, and I still am. I'm quite the movie nut. But we would go and rent movies, and suddenly this video rental dude, the dude who owned it, he started having a small section of video games. And he would take in the latest games on PS1, you could rent them, and I knew he was gonna get Tekken 1, so I called him prior to the release many times and said, do you have Tekken? Do you have Tekken? He's like, no, not yet, for fuck's sake, kid, stop busting my balls, literally, like he would say this.
Because of how tenacious Adrian was, he eventually got his way. And, oh boy, was Adrian super happy about this.
And then eventually I would call, and this was in November, and he would have the game.
But something big eventually happened that Adrian did not expect, and this may have kind of crashed his world a little bit.
I was like, oh! I'd run to the store, I rented Tekken 1, took it home, put the disc inside my PS1, hit the power button, and bang! Black screen. The game would not boot. And I had no idea why. At those days, I didn't know anything about the hardware, or, well, I still don't know a shitload about a PS1. But I at least know what a CD is. I didn't know in those times. I mean, I compared it to a Snickers bar, basically. But it just would not boot. And the 10-year-old main man, after a couple of attempts, he was so frustrated that he cried. I actually cried. I had waited so long to play this game. No other game ever had that impact on me. So I guess this was fate. This was destined to be.
As children, when we don't get our way, our worlds are torn apart. But something either fills the void, something else captures our attention, or there's true luck to be had.
But I still remember crying, lying down in my bed to go to sleep, and I was so frustrated I could not play this game, and I expressed it to my parents, and And I remember my dad being like, oh, it's too bad, real sorry, we'll fix this, we'll get another copy. And you know how kids are, like I wanted it to work now. But anyway, so I slept and I woke up the next day and my sister came, my little sister, who at this time was 8. And she said, let's try that game again. And we hit the power button and suddenly the game booted. It worked! It went past the white screen with the orange Sony logo and into the piracy disclaimer. And as soon as you see that screen, it basically means the game is gonna boot. And I shit my pants and I saw the Namco logo, which was so epic.
Adrian lost hope, but his sister gave him the little push he needed. Little did Adrian know that this would be the start of his Tekken career for the rest of his life.
But it was, yeah, I just loved it from the first second. And the very first Tekken match I ever played was with my sister, versus mode. She picked Yoshimitsu and I picked Yoshimitsu. And in Tekken 1, this is basically 1 player Yoshimitsu is blue, 2 player Yoshimitsu is red. And we just hacked at each other, pressing buttons. I remember that we loved the fact that he could spin. Tekken 1 Yoshimitsu was basically all about down back, free. You probably know the move I'm talking about. He spins like a helicopter, sticks his leg out, and it just never ends. It's like a tornado of kicks. And he had back 1, and down back 2. So it's high, mid, low. And we just loved those. I mean, it was so cool. It was so cool to us. And so we played those matches, and then I would play arcade mode. I loved the cutscenes at the end. I just wanted to see every cutscene for every character. In those days, you know, CG cutscenes at the ending of games, you know, it wasn't. It was very new, you know, and this was before. I just gotta say, this was before, you know, internet and all of that. I don't think we had a computer even at our house at this point. You know, I think my dad got his first computer in like '95 to work with Photoshop. But so games were very mysterious at this point in time, you know.
Suddenly, the character that caught Adrian's eye was everyone's favorite Catman. You know who I'm talking about.
If you ever had, you know, in Tekken 1, I remember I got obsessed with King. King was actually the character I played from Tekken 1 to Tekken 3 as my main. It wasn't Kazuya yet, even though I loved him in Tekken 2. It was just an amazing experience playing Tekken 1. And I don't know what it is, but I just got hooked, and I've been hooked since, you know. I've been playing the game for a million years, and for the longest time now, it's like the only game I play. It would not take long before I saw King as the coolest character ever. I like the story, the ending in Tekken 1, where we see a church bell, we hear music, and then we see King outside a church, yeah, on a grass field, and children run out to greet him. And that basically says that he won Tekken 1, and the prize pool money went to children he took care of in his orphanage, I think. And as a kid, you know, you loved that story, the story of King, you know, the noble priest who fought for the well-being of children who had it rough in life, no parents.
Remember this line because it will be very important for the rest of the video.
Mistake in life, because I'm guessing this is the question I have to answer now, and you've used 40,000 MASKU points to throw that question at me. And again, I would have preferred how many characters are there in Tekken 2 main man, or what was the first game to feature Devil or Mokujin, or, you know, something about frame data. But you obviously go for what's your biggest mistake in life, and yeah, I could probably just think about that for a long time. But I do not need many seconds actually, because it's something I think about quite often. And in my case, it was being very afraid of growing up, you know, and
This is a common issue with men, and young men specifically, and it's a fair one, to be honest. A lot of us are scared to tackle responsibilities.
tackling responsibility. I was 25 when I left my when I moved out. How do you say it in English? When you live with your parents. I was 25 when I moved out. Lived with a girlfriend, so I was reliant on her and her apartment, and I only worked like part-time. I really didn't make any decent money. I basically sealed myself shut into an apartment playing Tekken, having a lot of fun with that, but never really making an attempt, you know, to land a solid full-time job. Or I just felt pretty useless for a long time. I flunked out of high school.
Wait, what's one thing lots of celebrities have in common? Oh wait. The answer is a lot of them flunked high school. One of the best artists ever, Jay-Z, Rihanna, very popular, famous singer, Tom Cruise, come on, you know Mission Impossible, Johnny motherfucking Depp. Sorry, it just had to be pointed out.
Some of that, and I'm not about to start playing the world's smallest violin, but some part of that was my mother dying when I was 14.
Remember the part where I told you not to forget?
Due to cancer, she was sick for 2 years, and that's going to have, you know, profound problems on any family. And I have 4 siblings, so, you know, 5 kids watching their mother slowly die. It's just not a good thing, and I'm not alone here. Obviously, you know, cancer affects, you know, every third person I think is going to get some form of cancer. So horrible. But that's not an it was there, so that had an impact. But I can't I can't excuse myself, you know. And after that, I land a part-time job. And then eventually I start doing animation. I go into 3D school. I work with that for 2 years. But then the studio I was working at actually went bankrupt. This was in 2011, so you had the financial crisis, you know, really affecting the animation studios in Sweden.
So, what crisis? Well, in August 2011, investors lost trillions due to many different variables causing the stock market to fall. There was a debt crisis in Europe, uninspiring economic news, and a bust in the US credit rating, which caused a fear of double-dip recession. This affected Europe and the US and caused small businesses to shut down.
So that was over. I realized I didn't want to work with 3D. Didn't have an apartment. I didn't have a high school diploma, so I couldn't study. I felt that I couldn't get a job because I just
felt useless.
I literally asked myself, like, what value would you be to an employer? And it's like, when you have all of those thoughts, that's it's this spiral, very negative spiral that I see a lot of people fall into, especially young men. Who for some reason lock themselves into an apartment, and you have fun with Tekken, you have fun with gaming, you know, you watch YouTube videos, and slowly you interact less and less with the outside world. And that's what I did after the studio I worked for went bankrupt. I basically was in an apartment, I made 3D videos, I played Tekken, focused on my YouTube channel, completely reliant on multiple girlfriends, living with them. And it's all of it was just shit. So that's my biggest mistake in life. I actually waited until I was 27 to start living as an adult. And what woke me up was at the age of 27, getting dumped by my girlfriend, and I didn't even like her that much. We had only been together for 12 months, and I many times, and this is what I did with multiple girlfriends, I just felt like, this isn't a good relationship, but it's all I have. It's just one thing I have in my life that I feel adds, you know, something, you know. You've accomplished something, you have a girlfriend. But she dumped me, and more so than being, I was really, it was like hitting a wall in 200 miles per hour. Just bam! You know, I hit rock bottom. Like, I was completely destroyed. This was in 2014, and this is where I took a two or 3 month break from Tekken.
In these 3 months, Adrian would put down the thing he loves most at this time, or at least he thought he loved the most, was Tekken. He had to do this to straighten his life out. If he did not do this, then he noticed that his life would completely go down the drain, the utter gutter. So, Adrian realized he had no choice but to finally take up his adult responsibilities and be the man he was chosen to be.
I've never done that before in my life, you know, 25 years. But when she dumped me, I hit rock bottom because it was realizing that I didn't like her, but I've lost the only thing in my life I felt was something. And that suddenly woke me up to like, what the hell are you doing? Why do you only have a part-time job that you dislike? Why don't you have an apartment? You're 27. Or why aren't you at least working towards it? Why aren't you hanging out with your friends as much as you'd like to? Why don't you have a high school diploma? Why haven't you even attempted to correct that? Why do you judge everyone you see? Why do you judge people who have a job and have been to academia for 3 to 5 years? Oh, they're just, you know, running the fool's errand. They're doing what society dictates, what society wants them to do. You know, work 9 to 5 at some fucking job. Oh, losers. You know, playing the system. And it all came from insecurity. So within those 2 months of skipping Tekken, I got my high school diploma. I actually read, you know, I had to do geography, physics. I just took many courses because I was so behind. But I only needed like a few weeks or a few days with every course. I just read the books, boom, took the test, and bam, I fixed my high school diploma. For 10 years, I had said that I was gonna start hitting the gym. I had never done it. Boom, started hitting the gym immediately.
Adrian notices his insecurities, and instead of crying about it or whining about it, Adrian decides to be a man. He steps up, takes action, admits his wrongdoings. This is what makes a man truly a man. He notices his weak points, his faults, even if you want to say
his sins.
He puts in the work and rights his wrongs.
Got into pretty decent shape in only 2 months. I got an apartment. I lived literally in a big building full of apartments that are reserved for social outcasts. Most of the apartments, 80% of them, were for convicts and drug abusers. But like 20% of them were reserved for homeless adults. Boom, me. Got one of those, lived on 13 square meters. And yeah, I don't know how many times I witnessed really, really weird and disgusting shit in that building, but that was 6 months. And then I got a full-time job, and a much better one than I had before. It was along the same lines, a much better job. And immediately I was much happier. And what had held me back up until the point of reaching the age of 27, I was afraid. I was afraid of looking for a new job because I felt, oh no, I'm not good enough. Oh, low self-esteem. They're not gonna want me. And I shit on other people who go to academia because I felt I couldn't do it myself. So they're idiots.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is also during the time Wilhelm was born, in the early Tekken 7 and the early testing phases of Tekken 7 Fated Retribution. So if I'm wrong on this, feel free to correct me, but I just wanted to point that out. And with that being said, this concludes our first part. On to the second part. One fateful day after a stream, Adrian saw a post on Twitter. He decided to share his thoughts. Little did he know, hell was about to come his way.
Although yesterday was a pretty weird day for me, to say the very least. There was an enormous social media meltdown where I heard from left and right that I had really fucked up and that I was, all kinds of things. Basically, I was a bad person. But what started it all was a tweet. I really dislike Twitter. Try to stay away from it as much as I can, but there was a tweet interaction with the god himself, Ni.
Hello, welcome to my studio.
I interjected with a response to something he said, and he responded a certain way. I'm gonna go through it all. And in that particular scenario, I feel like I did nothing wrong whatsoever. Endless of tweets about me being a scrub man. I think it meant scrub man. By all kinds of people, and pretty big community heads. Pretty large figures in the community, and I was just blown away by the whole thing. But very unwise of me, just half an hour after the fact, that Ni tweets that, I start a stream, and I stream for 5 hours, and that blows up, and I get a lot of stream monsters, people coming to my stream to troll, etc. And I said something pretty damn insensitive, which I am going to apologize for. Although there's a clip going around that is very much clipped out of context. If you watch the entire stream, you'll understand more my point of view. But it was still insensitive, and that was me being a little bit tired and disgruntled.
It looks something like this.
Yes, let's rob 6 million people of cool guest characters, because 2 of them are problematic at the absolute highest level of play. Is it a character that came out because 6 million people wanted it? It's just a wish that it doesn't come out. Hey, hello Scrapman, will you shut up?
2 hours later.
And spent some time there years ago. The Korean scene is the dirtiest and ugliest Tekken scene in the world. But people don't know about it because when they show up to tournaments, they're all like this. They play elegant like this, and they smile, and they They never trash talk, they never boo, they never shout, they never gloat, they're always... But it's a facade.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah, I stabbed a man in the heart.
Alright, all jokes aside, let's get serious once again. No matter if you love him or hate him, this man has dedicated his whole life to the Tekken community. All he does is give and give until he has nothing left to give. This man has worked his ass off for years with content, keeping his life in order to make the best videos for us possible, in order for him to have the best life possible, and never drop Kazuya.
What's up guys, Tmmswe here. I'm hoping you're all doing awesome as always, and today I'm gonna talk about Tekken 6 Kazuya. Great game, but my god, what did they do to my boy Kazuya in this game? He was terrible. The problem was he was still very, very hard to use, execution demanding like no other character, like super hard, but he was super weak on paper. And you don't want both of those components in the same character, right?
Again, he never dropped Kazuya, he never gave in and switched. Ever.
That's kind of a GoPro.
Yeah, it's very flexible, always in my pocket.
So I walked for 2 minutes and now I'm at the title to play some Tekken 7.
Your favorite Tekken and my favorite Tekken. So let's start with you. What's your favorite Tekken?
People here are asking me about arcade sticks and how we play on, how we wave dash on player 1. And a big difference between Korean stick, bat, and Japanese ball is that
it's a real pleasure. I'm a huge fan of Blasted Salami, as I said in my intro video. So it's a real blast.
Another thing you said in your YouTube video, you've been playing Tekken for 24 years. Is that true?
yes.
Has Tekken been around for 24 years?
1994, right? When it was originally called, well, it was originally meant to be called Rave War, right? But before it was Tekken.
Terrible.
It's a terrible name. So.
Hey, I don't know why these guys think that they're hard. Where I'm from, after street fights, they bring a Tekken. Hey, King J, what we tell him? Back on.